In terms of quantity of AI news, this week has probably been the biggest of the year. We got an absolutely insane new video model out of Google. Microsoft went all in on agents. Anthropic announced a brand new large language model, and OpenAI and the designer of the iPhone announced some sort of mysterious new project. Again, it was a lot, so I don't want to waste your time. Let's get right into it. This week saw 4 major tech events. Over the weekend, we had Computex in Taiwan. Then on Monday, we had Microsoft Build up in Seattle. Tuesday was Google I/O down in Mountain View. And then Thursday, Anthropic held their first Code with Claude conference, where they made some announcements as well. Let's open the fire hose up with Google I/O. There were so many announcements during Google I/O that Google themselves put out a blog post called 100 Things We Announced at I/O. But don't worry, I'm not going to break every single one of them down. I'm just going to share the ones that I found the most interesting, the coolest, or the ones that have the biggest impact on the most amount of people. And by far, the thing that most people are talking about was the introduction of Veo 3, Google's new video model. Not only does this model improve video quality, it actually adds dialogue, sound effects, background music, and is so good that some of the videos that have been circulating online have actually been fooling people into thinking they are real videos. And as I always do, as soon as I got my hands on this new model, I had to test a wolf howling at the moon. Here was the first result. It was a little too growly for me, almost sounded more like a lion than a wolf. So I tested it again, and this was the second try. Much better in my opinion. I also had to test my old monkey on roller skates, and well, hopefully my first try doesn't get this video demonetized, because this is what came out of it. After that, I wanted to test it again to see if I can get some slightly different anatomy, and I got this version. All that audio, by the way, was actually created by Veo 2. I didn't add that in after the fact. After I got my 2 normal benchmarks out of the way, I wanted to test something a little more complex, so I gave it this prompt here. Feel free to pause and read it, and this was the result. This was the first time I noticed a little bit of jankiness from the video. If I fast forward, you'll notice that when he jumps off the building, the physics are a little weird. He's kind of floating through the air. But the other thing that I noticed was that it randomly added subtitles here, even though the prompt didn't call for subtitles, and it had a typo in it. It said they're getting closer, but spelled closer, C-L-O-A-S-E-R. I then went to go prompt another video and was told I couldn't prompt any more videos until after 11:30 p.m. So after prompting a total of 5 videos, I was hit with my rate limit and couldn't prompt anymore till the next day. So of course, I waited till the next day, prompted more, and started seeing more of the same kind of funkiness. Now, the visuals are still pretty dang good, but it still does this weird subtitle thing.
By the roots of Yelenor. It's real.
So yeah, it wrote the subtitle by the thoots of Yelenor. It's real. Here's another one I generated. You can see the prompt here, and here was the result.
Mission control, you're gonna want to see this.
More weird subtitles, but visually still pretty cool. Here was my next prompt.
He's not who he says he is, Detective.
This is probably the jankiest one I came up with so far. You'll notice that he picks up the cigarette, takes a puff, and then when the girl walks in, basically swallows the cigarette. And then when you see the subtitles, he's not who Beau phase he is defective in. Here's another prompt I tested, and here's the result.
Protocol Omega initiated.
Here was a 5th generation. You can see the prompt here and the result.
May the gods watch over us.
This one, it didn't throw in the subtitles, so not bad, but that was my 5th generation, and it cut me off again. It said that's all you get. VO3 is pretty impressive visually, even though there's still some jankiness from time to time with some of the physics. It does tend to put weird subtitles, although I was watching a video from Tim from Theoretically Media, who said that if you don't put quotation marks around the dialogue, it seems to solve the problem with adding subtitles when you don't ask it to. So that's something you can test. Just remove the quotes and maybe you won't get the subtitles. The other thing that I find a little bit frustrating about VO3 is these rate limits. In order to use VO3 right now, you have to sign up to the new Google AI Ultra plan. And if we scroll down to look at the pricing of the Ultra plan, you can see you've got Google AI Pro, which is $20 a month, but there's a 1 month free trial. And then you have Google AI Ultra, which is $250 a month, where for the next 3 months, it's 50% off. But if you look through the features, the $20 a month plan comes with VO2, the $250 a month plan comes with VO3. Now, granted, I am paying half right now at $125, but for $125 a month, only getting 5 generations and then being told I need to wait till tomorrow to generate more is kind of frustrating. Now, there are a lot of other features that come with this plan, but it is more expensive than OpenAI's highest plan, than Claude's high plan. And honestly, right now, I think most people are getting it so that they can use VO3. Again, I do find the visuals to be the best we've ever seen from any of these video models so far. And the dialogue and the lip syncing is hands down the best I've ever seen out of every model that does lip syncing. Like, we are entering that world where you're going to have to see videos online and second guess almost everything. You'll see videos online and need to wonder, is this AI generated or not? Because it's getting that good. I also do have some concerns about all of the AI generated slop that's going to flood social media. And I'm really kind of hoping that people are going to continue to want content that isn't AI generated, but I do kind of have a feeling that it will be good enough at some point where people aren't going to care whether what they're watching was AI generated or not. And that is a little bit concerning. I know in my situation, I like tools like this to maybe speed up some of my workflows. It might make making things like motion graphics to explain things on the screen a little bit easier, and I want to use it for that kind of stuff. But some of the examples that are floating around out there that you've probably seen already on social media, they look like actual sort of influencers talking to a camera and explaining concepts. It's pretty mind-blowing right now. But VO3 wasn't the only video update they made during Google I/O. They also added some updates to VO2, things like camera controls, so you can add things like rotation and dolly and zooms to your shots. We could see some examples here of a zoom in and a rotate up and a move right and a move back. They also added this reference powered video where you can give it 2 images, like this image of a woman in a dress and this image of a hallway, and actually blend them together to create a video. They added outpainting, which allows you to make videos bigger. So we can see in this example here, we have an original video, and then in this next video, you can see that it's the same video, but they zoomed out and added more to the shot using the prompt outpaint and add castle. They also added the ability to add and remove objects from a scene. So we have this scene here with an astronaut looking at a giant crashed orb of some sort. And then the next shot, they wrote remove spaceship. And now it's the same shot with the giant orb thing removed. They also showed off a new platform called Flow, which was probably the thing that I'm the most excited about. It's made for filmmakers. Now, to explain what Flow does, let me just kind of show you. Inside of the Flow platform, if I click on new project here, they have a text to video, frames to video, and an ingredients to video. There's also some settings over here where you can select how many outputs you want it to give, but you can also select whether you want it to use VO2 quality mode, VO2 fast mode, or VO3 for your generations. I'm gonna go ahead and set this to 1 generation because this is a credit system and it does use your credits quickly. So I just want 1 generation. Let's start with a text to video. I'll just do a cat eating a taco and we'll go ahead and generate with text to video. And after about 2.5 minutes, I've got this video here. And we can see it's got this button to add to scene. So if I click add to scene, we actually now get a timeline down here. And if I hit this plus, I can actually click jump to and create another scene in this timeline of videos, or I can extend the existing video. Now, if I do jump to, I could give it a prompt like a dog jumps on the table, chasing away the cat and eats the taco, and submit that. And then we get a second shot where we can see a dog sort of joins the shot, doesn't really chase the cat away, but then comes in to eat the taco itself. Another thing that was interesting is that it seemed to have dropped the audio when I added the new scene, even though I was still using VO3. So not quite sure why that happened. You can also click the plus to extend the video. So if I wanted to extend this, I can press this and then give it a prompt of the cat runs away. But when I go to submit it, it tells me that this model isn't compatible, and we'll see that it automatically downgraded me to VO2 instead. Interestingly, it seemed to have extended the first clip instead of the second clip. So we could see our cat eating the taco and then running away. And then it jumps to our third clip with the dog jumping up. I don't know why it added it in the middle. This is definitely still kind of an early beta feeling project, but I really like the implications of what we'll be able to do with this. It also has this frames to video feature, which I've tested a little bit as well. My first test, I gave it this wolf howling at the moon, and I gave it an image of a man howling at the moon, and I asked it to transform the wolf into a man. So a wolf howling at the moon transforms into a man howling at the moon. Here was the first couple attempts at that. Here's number one. Now there's no audio. This was actually generated with VO2 and not VO3, but we can see we got a glow around the wolf, and then it just sort of, transitions over to the man howling at the moon. It didn't do any sort of morphing or anything. Here was my second attempt. Our wolf's howling at the moon here, and then it just sort of pans over to the man howling at the moon. Here's my third attempt where I changed the prompt a little bit. We see a wolf howling at the moon, and the camera zooms out to show a man howling at the same moon. So instead of transforming, I just wanted it to zoom out, and then you see the man there. And this is what I got on my first attempt. There's our wolf howling at the moon. And then it just jump cuts over to the man howling at the moon. And here was my final attempt with it. You can see our wolf howling at the moon here. Then the man walks into the shot, and then it sort of pans over to the right to show him howling at the moon, which I thought was the best generation I got from this, because it did a good job of sort of merging the two shots together and making it feel like maybe it was a similar scene, but still a little bit janky. Like you can see the moon sort of weirdly just sort of shrinks down as it moves over. And also it was supposed to zoom out, where instead it panned over. Again, the implications of this are really cool. I just think it still has a little bit of work to go. This is very early days with this project, but I'm really excited to play with this more as it evolves. And before we move away from video real quick, there's one benchmark that we haven't looked at yet that everybody's always curious about. Here's Will Smith eating spaghetti using AI video generators back in 2024. Yeah, everybody remembers these videos. Well, Javi Lopez tested the same prompt with VO3 with, yes, sound effects. And here's Will Smith eating spaghetti today. I apologize to your ears for that. The spaghetti sounds a little bit crunchy to me, but the video, quite a big leap. All right, I've already been talking for a while, and we've only talked about Google's video models so far, and that is just scratching the surface of what was announced at Google. So I'm gonna kind of rapid fire a lot of the other more interesting things that came out of Google I/O. They have a new image model called Imagen 4, which has gotten quite a bit better, especially with things like text. It's also got quite an improvement in realism from what I can see from these images, and can even do things like full comic pages that look pretty decent. They also showed off Google Beam, which was previously known as Project Starline. This is like a video conferencing project where there's cameras all around this screen here that are looking at the person, can see where your eyes are looking, and it makes it look like the people that are talking to each other actually have depth. Now, it's practically impossible to demo this on a normal 2D video. It basically looks like the person you're talking to is just like sitting on the other side of a window. Like they look 3D, they have depth. It's really crazy. They also showed off the new Android XR. They're working with Samsung to make a new virtual reality headset, but even more impressive were these glasses that they showed off on stage. Now, I got to demo these in London late last year, and saw the early prototypes and was pretty blown away, but was kind of sworn to secrecy, wasn't allowed to talk about it. So it's really exciting that they're now finally showing these off. We can actually see in this video here, this is a first person view of somebody looking at this woman here. Apparently the woman's speaking in Spanish and it's translating everything she's saying to English. So as this person's walking next to this woman here, she's able to understand everything she's saying because it's essentially subtitling her below the speaker. Here's a shot of somebody actually sending a text message using their voice and being able to read text messages back and forth just in their field of view while they're walking down a street. Here's Google Maps actually giving them directions as they're walking around town. You can see the little heads up display at the bottom of the screen here where it actually pulls up a little map. It tells them to turn right, but then pulls up a map and shows them where to walk. And here's somebody saying, Gemini, take a photo, and it's actually taking a photo of what they're seeing, very similar to what you get with the Meta Ray-Bans. However, if you just notice that it actually pops up the image in your field of view. So you can get a preview of the image that it just took when you asked it to take an image. Unlike the Meta Ray-Bans where they're just normal lenses, this lens will actually show you the picture it just took, which is really, really amazing when you see it in person. It's just like floating there in front of you. Now, there was no announcements about when these will be available. They were more just kind of showing off like this is the technology we have and eventually we'll get them out into the public. But again, I've tested them in person and they are way more impressive than any of these video demos can even sort of show. Google also officially rolled out AI mode in search. So if I come over to google.com and I come up to this little labs button up in the top right and I click on it, we can see we can now turn on AI mode. So let's go ahead and turn this on. And now Google looks a little different. It now says meet AI mode, ask detailed questions for better responses. You can even ask multiple questions to AI mode and it will do multiple searches all at one time for you. Just for fun and my own ego, I'll ask, what does Matt Wolfe, the YouTuber, talk about? And what are his most popular videos? And why do people enjoy his content? I'm just gonna cram 3 questions all into one sort of search prompt here and we'll click search. And we can see that it just said it kicked off 6 searches all at once and then brought it all together for us on this overview page. So content theme, AI tool reviews and tutorials, AI news and trends, AI and creative workflows, popular videos or his AI tool breakdowns, news roundups and tutorials, why people enjoy his content, informative, educational, practical, actionable, engaging and enthusiastic, and up-to-date and relevant. Sweet, it got all of that and it did it insanely quick. And then it put its sources over on this side, much more like what you'd expect out of something like Perplexity. If I click show all, we can see all of the links that it pulled this information from. They also showed off deep search in AI mode to help you get even deeper dive research into topics. They added live capabilities in search. So if you're using the Gemini app, you can actually look around you with your phone, ask questions, and it will answer about what it sees around you. Now, they demoed this quite a while ago, and they've just now rolled it out to everybody on both Android and iOS devices. So you could use the Gemini app to sort of look around with that live view and talk to it about what you're seeing. They also showed off a new virtual try-on mode where with just one photo of yourself, you can try on any sort of outfit that you find online. And it actually does a really good job of understanding your body shape to show you how that outfit would look like on you specifically. In the past, it almost just like sort of swapped the face with your face and left the body of like whoever was wearing it in the original image. This one actually reshapes the clothes to look how they would look on you. They've also started baking Gemini into everything. They actually showed off that it understands your own writing style by reading your past emails and your Google Drive. If you give it access, it's not on by default, but if you give it access, it actually understands how you write, and then inside of Gmail can help you write emails in your tone. They also showed off that in Google Meet, you can do real-time translation now as well. Now, at the moment, it only works from English to Spanish, Spanish to English, but here's a quick demo of what that looks like.
Let me turn on speech translation. It's nice to finally talk to you.
Es bueno hablarte finalmente. No puedo esperar a alquilar tu casa.
Te vas a divertir mucho y creo que te va a encantar. You're going to have a lot of fun and I think you're going to love visiting the city. The house is in a very nice neighborhood and overlooks the mountains.
They also rolled out new versions of Gemini 2.5, the large language model, both the Pro and the Flash versions, which are better than the previous models. But probably most impressively about the new large language model was this deep think mode. It uses new research techniques, enabling the model to consider multiple hypotheses before responding. Essentially what it's doing is you give it a prompt and it generates a whole bunch of different responses for the prompts, looks through all of the generations that it created, and then determines the best one to give back to you. And if you're interested in benchmarks, you can see here how it performed in mathematics, code, and multimodality, with DeepThink pretty much beating out the prior versions of Gemini 2.5 Pro, OpenAI O3, and O4 Mini in all of these benchmarks. The other really impressive model they showed off was their 2.5 Flash and how greatly improved that was. This is their smaller, faster model, but on many of the benchmarks performs as well or better than models like OpenAI's O4 Mini and Claude Sonnet 3.7 in a much smaller, faster, more efficient model. They also showed off Gemma 3N, which performs almost as well as Claude 3.7 Sonnet, and it's designed to be efficient enough to run on mobile devices. So that's also insanely impressive. They showed off Jules, their asynchronous coding agent, meaning that you can give it a task that you want it to go code for you, walk away and come back and have a project coded up for you. And even though these weren't talked about during Google I/O, there was some NotebookLM updates this week as well, including a new NotebookLM mobile app. So the features that you like about NotebookLM, you can actually use directly on your phone, like listening to these AI generated podcasts. They also announced that they give you the ability to control the length of the podcast a little bit better. You can do short 5-minute podcasts or all the way up to 20-minute podcasts. And finally, in the last bit that I'll talk about Google, I know I've spent a lot of time on Google already. There was just so many announcements. We also learned that they are going to be rolling out video overviews. So right now we've got the audio overviews. You dump a bunch of information in there, a bunch of resources. It creates an audio podcast sounding clip of two people discussing the information that you uploaded. Well, now it sounds like we're going to get video versions of the same thing, most likely using features similar to that vids that we saw where it makes the PowerPoint presentations. I don't think they're using VO because it does say here, Google says users will soon be able to turn dense multimedia into digestible visual presentations. I just don't see them doing that with a model like VO, but a model that makes slides like Google Slides and then animates them for you makes a lot of sense to me. So yeah, a lot of news out of Google. And I mentioned there was multiple massive events this week. So let's keep on going and move over to Microsoft Build. Now this year, Microsoft's Build was really focused on developers. I didn't really feel like there was a ton of huge announcements that most consumers are really going to be that interested in, but I do want to give a quick recap of some of the more interesting things that I think came out of Microsoft Build, starting with Microsoft Discovery. This is an AI that's designed to help make scientific discoveries, essentially. We can see how they describe it here. It's built on top of a powerful graph-based knowledge engine. Instead of merely retrieving facts, this engine builds graphs of nuanced relationships between proprietary data as well as external scientific research. It allows the platform to have deep understanding of conflicting theories, diverse experimental results, and even underlying assumptions across disciplines. They've actually already used Microsoft Discovery to discover things like a new solid-state electrolyte that uses 70% less lithium, which allows them to make better batteries. Previously, they would have needed to use high-performance computing and costly lab experimentation that would have taken multiple lifespans to complete. They also announced that if you use Microsoft Copilot, you now get access to ChatGPT's image generator. So I believe if you have Microsoft 365 with Copilot, you can now use the GPT-4o image model directly inside of it without needing a ChatGPT account to be able to use it. A bunch of Windows apps got updates as well, like Microsoft Paint got a sticker generator. You can use AI to select individual elements of an image inside of MS Paint, and you can use AI to help you write directly inside of Notepad now in Windows. GitHub, also owned by Microsoft, announced the new GitHub Copilot with a coding agent inside of it. It's embedded directly into GitHub, and the agent will start to work when you assign a GitHub issue to Copilot or prompt it in VS Code. The agent spins up a secure and fully customizable development environment powered by GitHub Actions. We can see in their demo video here, they give it this diagram and then give it the prompt, implement this data diagram, and then it goes off and autonomously starts to write the code. They also show in their demo them tagging GitHub and it actually going and looking at information straight from GitHub. Here's another example where we can see under the Issues tab under their repository in GitHub, it goes ahead and checks a bunch of these issues here. And then after checking, they click the assign button, and they can actually assign it to Copilot to go and fix those issues. Copilot fixes them and goes and checks them off as complete as it finishes them. And in another really interesting move from Microsoft, they decided to open source GitHub Copilot inside of VS Code. The AI-powered capabilities from the GitHub Copilot extension will now be part of the same open source repository that drives the world's most popular development tool, VS Code. So we're probably going to see a bunch of forks and new implementations of what GitHub Copilot in VS Code already created, meaning probably more tools like Cursor and Windsurf and things like that, because they're already starting with a baseline of what GitHub Copilot created for them. And then the week continued with even more big news out of Anthropic. They finally introduced some new models in Claude 4. We can see some new benchmark comparisons here where they've got Opus 4, Sonnet 4, Sonnet 3.7 against some of the OpenAI models and the Gemini 2.5 Pro models. And in software engineering, we can see that it outperforms all of them. And here's some more benchmarks for people that are interested in that sort of thing. Interestingly, things like Claude Sonnet 4 actually performed worse on things like agentic tool use and graduate level reasoning, but it was really a pretty big leap in coding. And from my understanding, what Anthropic is doing is they're no longer trying to be like that chat bot company. They're not trying to be a competitor to ChatGPT anymore. It seems like they're trying to make the best reasoning, the best coding model out there, and not necessarily the best just general use, go chat with it model. Coders have really jumped on board with Claude Sonnet 3.7. It was pretty much the best model for coding. Gemini 2.5 Pro was pretty close. And I think Anthropic realized that and decided we're going all in on making the best model for coding and reasoning. And we're going to not try to compete with Google's Gemini and ChatGPT for the just everyday use kind of chatbot. This new model is also a hybrid model, meaning that you can have it prompt without doing that chain of thought thinking, or you can turn that switch on and have it think a little bit harder to give an even better answer, but it's also going to be slower. Now, another really interesting story surrounding this Claude 4 model is that Sam Bowman, an Anthropic AI alignment researcher, wrote on X that if it thinks you're doing something egregiously immoral, for example, like faking data in a pharmaceutical trial, it will use command line tools to contact the press, contact regulators, and try to lock you out of the relevant systems or all of the above, which is just absolutely wild. However, Sam did go back to X and deleted his tweet and then clarified, to be clear, this isn't a new Claude feature and it's not possible in normal usage. It shows up in testing environments where we give it unusually free access to tools and very unusual instructions. So although there is media out there saying that if you test unethical things, they might call the cops and alert the media on you, Sam is flat out saying here, no, it won't. That was very unusual circumstances. That's not something you really need to be worrying about. And now with all of these big announcements and all of this stuff happening, there was a handful of things that kind of flew under the radar. So I'm going to sort of rapid fire some of those things real quick, including this, which happened at the very end of last week. But because I record these on Thursdays, it didn't make the video. And that's that OpenAI introduced Codex. This is their new agentic coding tool where you can give it tasks to go handle things in your coding project and it will autonomously go off and do them for you. The company Mistral released Devstral, their new AI model specifically designed for coding. We can see on their benchmarks here, when it comes to coding, it outperformed GPT 4.1, Claude 3.5 Haiku, and Smith LM32B. Not super familiar with that one. But we can also see that this one is light enough to run on consumer-ish hardware, like an RTX 4090 or a Mac with 32 gigabytes of RAM. Stability AI released Stable Video 4D, which is a video model that can apparently take in a 2D input video, figure out new views on that video, and then create a 3D version of that video, as we can see in the demos on the screen right now. Shopify launched an AI-powered store builder this week, and Testing Catalog here shared a sneak peek of what we can expect from the new Comet browser from Perplexity. Apparently, it's going to be really useful on helping you find information directly from X and give you tons of details about pretty much any profile. I'm expecting to get access to this soon to try it out myself, and when I do, I'll share it in a future video. And finally, there's one more thing that has the AI world buzzing, and that's the fact that OpenAI has acquired Johnny Ive's company, I.O. Now, it's really interesting that OpenAI acquired I.O. the week of Google I.O. I mean, I think that was some strategic trolling on OpenAI's part. But if you're not familiar with Johnny Ive, he is the guy who designed the iPod and the iPhone and some of the most iconic Apple products out there. And apparently he is now working with OpenAI to develop some sort of other physical AI gadget with OpenAI. Now, we don't know what it is. They haven't shared much details. They put together this highly polished documentary style video of the two of them meeting up in a bar to talk about their history together, but really no details about what they're actually developing other than Sam saw something Johnny created and was blown away by it, and was blown away by it enough to apparently acquire the company. Again, we don't know what they're releasing, but that doesn't stop all of these companies from speculating. Apparently, Johnny Ive said that he thinks Rabbit and Humane made bad products, so don't expect anything super similar to those. According to The Verge, some details have leaked around what this product might be, and these details are very light. So it will be pocket-sized, contextually aware, screen-free, and isn't going to be eyewear. Sam Altman suggested that the acquisition could increase OpenAI's value by $1 trillion and envisioned a family of devices being born. But more information than that is still tightly under wraps. So other than Sam and Johnny and probably the people sworn to secrecy working on the project, nobody really knows still. Some rumors claim it'll have an iPod shuffle form factor and be an AI necklace. And well, honestly, that's really all we're working with right now. If there's anything that Sam Altman and OpenAI are really good at, it is hyping the heck out of things. And whatever this is, they're trying to build hype around something that nobody has any clue what it's going to be yet, which is just absolutely fascinating. But anyway, it's been a long week. There was even more things that came out that I didn't even have time to get into, like news out of NVIDIA from Computex and much more. But if you want to get looped in on all of the news, even the stuff that I didn't squeeze into this already insanely long video, make sure you check out futuretools.io. You click on the AI news page and you can see that I update all of the news that's happening in the AI world on this page here. Also, if you just check out the general Future Tools website, I curate all the cool AI tools that I come across here, and I have a free newsletter where I'll just email you twice a week with the coolest tools and most important news. It's totally free to sign up, and you get free access to the AI income database, a database of cool ways to use AI tools to make some side income. Again, totally free, all over at futuretools.io. And if you want to stay looped in on all the latest AI news and cool tutorials and everything that's happening in this world, make sure you like this video and subscribe to this channel. And I will do my best to make sure more videos like this show up in your YouTube feed. Thank you once again for tuning in. It's been a heck of a week, and I really appreciate you nerding out with me. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.